Loch Ness is a long, narrow lake southwest of Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. It is the second largest loch in Scotland by surface area and the largest by volume. It is also the second deepest loch at an astounding 755 feet, that's 230 meters at its deepest point. The water is dark and murky due to the high levels of peat in the surrounding soil. The breadth, depth and low visibility of this particular loch make it a prime environment for someone's imagination to run wild, particularly when other lake monsters were plentiful in Scottish legends. The first recorded sighting of Nessie was in 565 AD by Saint Columba. St. Columba was an Irish missionary praised for spreading Christianity in Scotland. On one trip to the Highlands, he ran across a group of men burying a man who had recently been bitten by a monster in the River Ness. The saint supposedly asked another man present to swim across the river. When the man jumped in, the monster rose from the depths, and St. Columba, invoking God's power, he banished it. This story was written nearly a century after the supposed encounter, but even so, it remains a piece of so-called evidence used to demonstrate Nessie's existence. The next recorded sighting happens over 1,300 years later in 1933. George Spicer was out driving with his wife when they saw a large creature walk in front of their car near the loch. The creature supposedly had a huge body, long neck, and they couldn't see any limbs before it jumped toward Loch Ness. A few weeks later, a motorcyclist claimed to have run into a similar creature, describing it as a type of plesiosaur, a prehistoric marine creature with 4 large fins and a long neck, fitting the Spicer's description. Soon, with the building of a road along the loch's coast, many more reports of sightings of the monster flooded in. The 1933 sightings proved to be the beginning of a long and fruitless search for the monster. The first picture taken of Nessie was in November of 1933 by Hugh Gray. He supposedly saw a large creature rise above the surface of the water and snapped several photographs before it disappeared, but only one photo turned out when developed. The picture shows a creature with a long neck and a thick body with 4 lumps at its side, which might have been flippers. However, critics say that this is a photo of a dog swimming with a stick in its mouth, so not remotely frightening. Later that year, a man named Marmaduke Wetherell, a well-known big game hunter, was hired by the Daily Mail to find evidence of the Loch Ness monster. He later found large tracks on the edge of the lake and made molds, but the Natural History Museum examined them and said they were likely from a dried hippo's foot, which was a popular umbrella stand item at the time. On April 21st, 1934, the most famous picture of the monster was published in the Daily Mail. The picture was supposedly taken by a doctor named Robert Kenneth Wilson, but he didn't like having his name associated with the photo, so it simply became known as the surgeon's photograph. The picture shows, from a distance, the long neck and head of the monster rising up from rippling water. The picture is convincing to the untrained eye. However, critics, certain the photo was a hoax, claimed that it was everything from an elephant to a diving bird. In 1994, Christopher Sperling, the stepson of Marmaduke Wetherell, claimed that it was indeed a hoax and stated that he was involved in creating a model of Nessie's neck and head and placing it on a toy submarine. The pair then took the model to Loch Ness and took photos of it in the water. Wilson was then given the photos because he was a trusted man. He was a doctor. Wetherell was said to have come up with the hoax because he was humiliated by his previous attempt at finding the monster. Since that photo, countless videos, photos, and eyewitness accounts have emerged claiming to prove the existence of the Loch Ness monster. In 1954, the first contact via sonar was made on Rival 3, a fishing boat. 480 feet below the boat, a large object was seen keeping pace with the boat's speed. In 2011, sonar contact was made again by Marcus Atkinson, who saw an object about 5 feet long and 75 feet below the surface. It kept pace with his boat for 2 minutes before it disappeared. The sonar image has been examined and critics have dismissed it as an algae bloom. However, believers have said that algae couldn't survive at 75 feet as it needs sunlight to thrive, and as murky as the waters of Loch Ness are, very little sunlight would reach so far below the surface. Many other searches have taken place in order to find the monster. In 1934, 20 men sat at various locations around the loch with binoculars and cameras in the Sir Edward Mountain Expedition. They remained there from 9 to 6 every day for 5 weeks. 21 pictures were taken and examined, but they were thought to be of seals and not a monster. In the 70s and early 2000s, Robert Rines conducted a number of underwater investigations hoping to find Nessie. His studies resulted in several underwater photographs of possible fins and tails. However, in 2008 he claimed that based on fewer sightings and sonar readings, Nessie had likely died due to global warming. More recently, a photograph was taken by George Edwards in November of 2011. Edwards claims that this is the most convincing photograph yet. But this shouldn't be much of a surprise given the advances in photo editing software. However, in this case, even other Loch Ness Monster researchers have questioned the authenticity of the picture, claiming the hump rising from the water in the picture is actually a fiberglass model that was used in the filming of a documentary by National Geographic, which Edwards had participated in. With all the sightings and hunts for the monster, Loch Ness has become a popular tourist destination, and interested parties can hop on a boat and travel around the loch looking for the famous monster. Of course, Nessie is discounted by scientists as a myth, but people need something to do with their free time and their vacation dollars, and this is perhaps at least a more scenic route than traveling to the equator and paying to watch the different ways water spins down the toilets and drains depending on which side of the equator you're on. I do note here that this is also a myth, although every tour guide you'll find at the equator will tell you that it is a fact. The reality is, what hemisphere you're in has almost nothing to do with which way the water spins down the toilet. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up below. Don't forget to subscribe. Brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, we've got a podcast. It's called The BrainFood Show. If you just search that in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts with BrainFood as one word, you'll find it, and check it out. Let me know what you think. And as always, thank you for watching.